Hello and welcome to Brass Dragon Music. My name is Ralph Martin, and today we're going to be talking about scales and chord exercises using practice patterns. Now I'll put those PDFs as links as an attachment. You can always grab them, pull them down, and I'll show them here in the video also. Thank you for joining me. However you got here, I really do appreciate you coming and joining me today. This is mostly for serious beginners, intermediate students, students that really want to get serious about their playing. You've probably at this point are beyond at least book 2, book 3 of a band series, anything like that. But if you really want to start getting serious about your playing, this is a good place to start. Now, one thing I'm going to assume, A, you know all the fingerings of your instrument, and B, you at least know all your major scales. All right? That's a good place to start. I mean, it helps. As you go along, you're going to want to know more scales. You're going to want to know the minor scales. You're going to want to know the modes. And if you really want to get into improvisation, you're going to have to get into a couple other scales. Lydian flat 7, bebop scales, altered scales, etc., 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 pentatonics, all that great kind of stuff. All right? But that's for later. That's for later. So one of the very first things is, can you do a chromatic scale on your instrument? I'm a little rusty today. You have to forgive me. I haven't played flute in at least a couple of days, so I'm a little out of sorts. But anyways, can you do your chromatic scales? It's best to be able to do it from the lowest note to the highest note you can get, whatever your instrument. So now let's move on to using a major scale in the scale patterns. Now, if you know all your major scales, most of the time when we learn major scales, we learn them, you start with C, and you go to 1 flat, 1 sharp, which is F and G, and then you go to 2, which is B flat and D, etc., 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 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, and all the way up to 7. Once you learn that, you got to learn them more or less out of context. One way to do it is to do your major scales in the circle of fifths, which means that you can do the C major scale, then the F major scale, then the B flat major scale, and it goes something like this. That's the C major. Now the F major. Now the B flat. E flat, A flat, etc., etc. And you notice I didn't really pause very much between them. That's because I've been doing them for a long, long time. You may have to do them slower, but the idea is to get them off the page. You got to do them not looking at anything. You look at your practice sheet and say, okay, I'm going to do it in fifths, or I'm going to do it in fourths. Okay? And that's cool. That's a good way to get started with it. Then I would recommend, let's do it in half steps, all right? So I'll do the C major scale, up and down. Okay? Now let's do the D flat. Oop, let's try that again. Now the D major. Now the E flat. And etc., etc. And you go all the way up to C. Now what I would recommend, if you do them just in one octave, go all the way up as high as you can go from tonic to tonic, and then come back down again. All right. I would probably go all the way up to double G, something like that. Maybe double A. That's not too bad either on flute. Now, whatever your instrument is, okay, it's no big deal. Then I would do it in whole steps. Again, starting on C. Then D major. Then E major. F major. F sharp major, excuse me. A flat. B flat. Now we're back at C. Then I'd have to go back and start on D flat and go to D flat, E flat, F, G, A, B, and then D flat. So I do all 12 scales, because with the whole tone scale you can only do 6 scales at a time, and then you're starting to repeat. So you got 2 different sets there. If you go to minor thirds, then you have sets of 4. You do C, E flat, G flat, A, then you do D flat, F, no, D flat, E, G, B flat. Then you go to D, F, A flat, B. Okay? If you go to major thirds, then it's 4 sets. First one is 3 sets. This is 4 sets. You have C, E, G flat, A flat. Then you have D flat, F, A, D, F sharp, B flat. Then E flat, G, B. Okay? If you go in, the next one is fourths, and that'll take you all the way around the circle. All right? You'll end up hitting all 12 keys, and that's good. And then if you do sharp 4 or flat 5, which is tritone, then you have to end up doing just sets of 2. C, F sharp, D flat, G, etc., etc. Okay? You'll have 6 sets of 2. When you get to fifths, then it does the same circle all the way around again, but you're going in a different direction in the circle of fifths. It's circle of fifths. If you start with C, F, B flat, then you can go the other way, C, G, D, A, etc., etc. Okay? So now if, let's say you get all of that down, and you want to get onto the scale and chord exercises that I have the PDF for that's attached. Now you do your chromatic scale. Now I've done it from B flat to high F, and that's a saxophone, but do it whatever your instrument that you're using is. Okay? It's no big deal. Whatever your instrument range is, use that. But I'm going to do exercise 2, which is just do, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, do. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. then you could do the next one in line, whatever pattern you decide to use. If you're going to do in half steps, the next one would be then D, and then on and on and on. Next one is the same thing, but without the pause in the middle. In other words, starting on C, this is number 3 on the sheet. D flat, D, now one of the things I'm going to recommend is that you use a metronome when you do these, especially in the very beginning. Now, what does a metronome do for you? It teaches you consistency of rhythm. It teaches you how to stay in rhythm so that every note is the same length. It sets up a pattern for you, and it teaches your muscle memory how to stay in time. And you want to start fairly slow as you need to, and work it at that speed, that slow speed, until you really have it down. Don't be in a hurry to rush that part. Stay slow, and then just increase it 2, maybe 5 points. It just depends on your talent and your how much practice you get and how long you did stay at that initial rate. Okay, the longer you stay at it, you can go up to 5 points instead of just 2, because be able to do that easier because your muscle memory is starting to kick in. Okay, so then you just keep on going with this thing. Then you'll see number 4, you're doing the whole scale. But now the idea of that is to move from scale to scale in time. Like this. So you want to try to move from scale to scale in time. You make a little mistake, don't worry about it. Just keep going on. Again, it's got to be a little mistake. If you completely blank out, then I would recommend start over again. It doesn't hurt. The more practice you put in at this stage, the better it's going to be. And then number 5 is you're doing that scale twice. Okay? Now, one of the other great things to do, it's not shown here, but what I like to do is also just do the scale going up. Okay, that's exactly a set of 8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then come back down on the next scale. Now if I'm doing it in half steps, I come back down on D flat. Now you might want to take a little pause in the beginning, but if you can do it, starting on C again. I guess I need some practice too. but you get the idea. And I haven't done that particular exercise in a while. Okay? Now, you can also just do them straight up. Okay? And then straight down. Now, what's really important is once you get up to, okay, you've done all 12, you're back at your first one, now come back down, but do it descending. In other words, descending chromatically. You get the idea. I know, I'm screwing it up a little bit. Like I said, I haven't practiced this thing in a while. So I hope this gives you a good idea on how to practice your scales. Now we can do the same thing with triads, but I'll do another lesson on that separately. It'll be in the next video. So please hit the notice button, subscribe, and you'll see the next video when it comes out. I hope this has been helpful. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything, let me know. I would love to hear from you. I answer all my responses one way or another. So happy practice. Take care. Thank you, everybody.